How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Higurashi When They Cry. So I want to say something really quick. We have a special event coming up. I'm going to do a formal announcement, hopefully before this comes out, but I'd rather get the seeds planted even if I don't have a formal video up quite yet. I'll be participating in a really fun event that's kind of in collaboration with Steam. It's going to be called the Falling in Love Visual Novel Festival. Basically, it's some developers, primarily indie developers who are making visual novels, who are going to be having one of those banners that you can click on in Steam, and it brings you to a page where they're going to have a lot of discounts on a specific genre. This one is about visual novels, specifically romance visual novels, but it's visual novels, and that's just happens to be the theme this time. But I got basically kind of approached, I think is the word I would say, where they basically said, hey, if there's any content creators who would want to do stuff with the festival, put your name down here, and if some of our devs want to collaborate with you, they can contact you. And I had a lot of very interested people. It was actually nice because it was within 24 hours of me posting that I was interested in participating that I got more than I could deal with, really. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing a grab bag of just indie developer games. And so that's going to be kind of taking over the schedule for a little bit. It's kind of coinciding as well because I have a trip coming up. So I'm going to try and get this week's content all set up and ready to go. I'm also going to then kind of go on my trip for the weekend, and then starting the following week, we're going to kind of switch up the schedule for a bit. I'm basically going to just put everything on pause, and I'm going to publish a video every day for the duration of the festival, where I just do a 1 to 2 hour video, maybe shorter depending on how much time the demo has. Because some of them only feature a segment of the game. Some of them that's hey, here's the whole game, just cover what you want. I'm going to kind of try and limit it a little bit, where I'm just going to kind of play the game. We're going to see what it's like, and I'm just getting my thoughts about it. It's not me getting sponsored or anything. It's actually me wanting to sponsor smaller developers. So I think it'd be really good to kind of give it a shot, check out these games, and then consider, supporting these games and yourself if you think that they have interesting or potential. And I think it's really good to talk about this in front of a Higurashi video, especially because you got to remember where these titans of the industry come from. These earth-shattering, life-changing stories. Most of them came from people who just made games to make games, right? Isn't Higurashi a great example where it was one guy doing all the writing, doing all the art? There was no voice acting at all. And if I recall correctly from people's stories, he was one of those types of creators who would, make the game, burn it on discs himself and bring it to conventions and sell it on hand on these burned discs. I think that's how a lot of visual novel creators started out. We got to remember that that's where a lot of modern visual novel creators are right now. There's a lot of people who are interested in the genre and wanting to tell their stories, but they don't have a big publisher to help them get the incredible art, or they can't market themselves because they can't do that. The best they can do is do the modern day version of going to a convention and handing out CDs, and that is the Steam page. It's being able to publish on something that doesn't require you to have a massive backing in order to get a game out there. So yeah, I want to support developers like this. And is everything we're going to play going to be amazing? Probably not, but I bet you it'll be good and it'll be worth looking into. So I hope you make time for that, and also understand that there will be that pause in the content, but it's because I want to do this kind of highlight road show where I'm going to be publishing videos showcasing a lot of these smaller developers' work in the visual novel scene. So I hope you make time for that. Anyway, thank you for that. I'm going to jump into everything here. So I guess when it comes to Higurashi, one of the coolest tips I want to say here is that we're kind of treading similar ground to the first chapter. The beats are fairly similar in a lot of ways. We obviously have the very unique Rena experience with, Rika and, Tepe and that whole, murder question, very serious stuff. But it also kind of puts Rena in this interesting position where she clearly has a lot going on, but she's also much better equipped to dealing with the conspiracy of what's been going on with the Watanagashi system, so that when the Watanagashi killings happen, And when Oichi identifies her as the kind of outsider of the group and thus approaches her, we're seeing kind of how would the first... I think what this is going to play out is going to be a kind of, what if someone was better informed when the first chapter happened, where she has this information about the Watanagashi festival. She has the notes from like the historical records and some of this information that people might want to keep hidden. And we also have somebody who clearly has the willpower to take drastic action and to be willing to accept that bad things are happening. One of the things that holds Keiichi back the most is that he gets stun-locked by the inability to really accept that these terrible things are happening and potentially, and usually do, involve the people he cares about the most. Rena doesn't have those types of inhibitions, but she has a lot of other baggage she's dealing with, so I'm going to be curious to see how this plays out. But I'm very fascinated because she notices the weirdness and the van stalking her much faster than Keiichi did in the first chapter, and he doesn't really do much with that, but she's already on the offensive, against all of that. So I think it's really interesting. Now, she has roped Keiichi in, but again, that's something that Keiichi never really did. She's willing to ask for help from people. Maybe not a lot of people, but some people. So I'm curious to see where this goes. It has a lot more potential to end at a good place, but this is Higurashi we're talking about. There's no good place this is going to go. So, yeah, let's see how this unravels. All right. Ooh, late.
すまなかった、レナ。
Oh, what's up?
俺はどこかでレナの話を疑ってたよ。本当にすまない。
いいよ、ケイチ君。そのおかげで待ち伏せをやり過ごせたんだしね。
Yeah, see, this is so good. This is like us having a real conversation. We're actually getting involved in it, but it's also really interesting because it seems we're from Keiichi's perspective, but it feels like we're outside it too because we've been seeing things from her perspective as well.
あいつらは何者なんだ。そのお社様信仰を復活させようとする信者の集団の手先。
彼らにはそういう自覚はないと思う。彼らを操っている黒幕はそうなんだと思うけどね。
Alright.
多分ダム戦争の当時から陰で様々な工作をしてきた連中なんだと思う。
Also, listen to this music. It's jamming.
ダム戦争の最中に園崎家が裏でいろいろと暗躍したって話は俺も少しは聞いたことがあるな。
I know it's for the sake of expediation, but he also is way more informed in this chapter than he's been previously.
有名な話だよね。これは大石さんに聞いたんだけど、ダム戦争の最中に誘拐事件があったんだって。
Yeah.
これも秘密の事件なんだけど、なんでも建設大臣の孫を誘拐してダム建設中止の約束を裏取引したんだって。
大臣の孫を誘拐
Keiichi, you can't calm down.
おいおい、そんなの聞いたことないぞ。
大臣が犯人との取引に応じる姿勢を見せたため、事件を公にしないことになったんだって。大石さんは当時、その事件に関わったから知ってるんだって。
うんうん。それで？
大石さんが言うには、孫の誘拐や大臣の脅迫などの手口は恐ろしいほどに高度だったんだって。
That's true. Frighteningly advanced. It was very well executed. Again, we know that a lot of that has to do with the Sonozaki basically being a Yakuza, but at the same time, it is good to be reminded that even then, they're kind of a regional power and their headquarters is out here in these kind of small town, mountain villages basically. And yet they have so many resources to work with. It's terrifying.
その事件は園崎家が命令を下したことだけは分かっているけど、結局未解決なんだって。当時、園崎家の当主である園崎お涼は武装闘争の方針を打ち出していて、配下である暴力団組織の中に特攻隊を組織したそうなの。ダム計画の撤回がどうしても望めないときは、建設省に突入して武力制圧しようなんて、そんな物騒な計画を本気で練っていた。
Oh, wow. I mean, I remember that definitely was implied of that, but she's speaking it's been confirmed that Oishi knew that she basically had ordered a hit on him if he hadn't complied. Everybody knows that the Sonozaki family tried to stop the dam project even if it meant breaking the law. So I wasn't surprised to hear that she had a dangerous plan like that. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Mion who came up with the idea. The plan sounded just like her.
結局その計画は計画のままで終わったんだけど、それを実行するための特攻隊の訓練というのは行われていて、相当高度なものだったらしいよ。
I don't think I kind of clicked right through it, but like we can't overlook this idea that apparently in this universe, Keiichi is looking back and isn't surprised that, you know, Mion, who 6 years ago, who had been very small, could come up with that plan. I mean, it does sound like modern Mion, but I don't think Mion then could have come up with this plan, could she? Is that what they're implying? That because how old would she have to be? Like 10, 12? Like, could come up with this? That'd be crazy. Oishi had uncovered the information right after the dam conflict ended. At the time, Oryu had even said that the village was going to be submerged. All members of the Onagafuchi Guardians would choose to stay in their houses and drown. So because Oryu was behind those things, I couldn't just laugh off the idea of an armed assault on the Ministry of Construction. According to the information Oishi sees, she planned a suicide mission as her last resort when the dam conflict started to heat up in case their resistance wasn't successful. She had actually obtained weapons and put people through training for the sake of that plan. Good grief, she just became a terrorist cell. A special attack corps were flown to America, having received a huge amount of money from Oryu for the operation. So wait, they flew to America for training, or what? In the southern deserts of the United States, some retired military soldier gave them highly professionalized training. Yeah, okay, that actually kind of makes sense. Like, it's funny because, like, I don't know, and anyone's, like, from outside the United States or even in the United States, some of you might think, like, that's ridiculous. It's not. I know that actually exists. It's crazy it can happen. But there's people and groups that will actually sell camps where you go through pseudo-military training. Granted, it's not as intensive or instructive as true military training is, but there tend to be ex-military people who are giving trainings to civilians. Absolutely a thing. While the plan was never carried out, the Special Attack Corps became the Death Squad under the direct control of Oryu after they came back from America. They were involved in many unresolved terrorist incidents, and they succeeded in kidnapping the grandson of the minister as well.
嘘みたいな話だな。
It kind of does, but like also explains a lot in a way. Like why do we have these like people who seem like so militarized? It's like they are literally militarized.
みーちゃんがよくヘリの操縦から無線機まで何でもできるみたいなことを言うでしょ。
Oh my gosh, you don't think she was like, you think she's being serious?
あれは本当。みーちゃんも当時その訓練に参加してるらしいよ。
How? She was like 12.
じゃああいつ本当に。
まあみーちゃんの話はともかく、このひなみ沢には大臣の孫すらも誘拐できるだけの暗殺部隊が存在するってことだけは疑っちゃダメ。
Then what freaking chance do we stand? I didn't take a close look at the four men in the white van today, but thinking about it, they did look professional in a way. They were pretending to be just taking a break, but I could tell they were tense the whole time.
それであいつらはレナの命を狙っているのか？
I think they're just trying to kidnap her and or at least take her stuff.
多分狙ってはいないと思う。
I feel like if they wanted to actually eliminate somebody, they would have just moved.
殺すだけだったら私もう殺されてるよ。
じゃあ狙いはまさかあれか、高野さんのスクラップ帳。
圭一君が見た通り、連中は相当警戒心が強いみたいで、隙を見つけない限りは強引な手段に訴えてこないみたいなの。
Okay.
だって強引な連中なら私の自宅の寝込みを襲えばいいんだから。
Kind of terrifying to think about though, how like all of us live in a world where if the right information were to be released or the right lies were believed, any of us could just have that happen to us. Just be like in the middle of the night, just taken out by people who are professional and skilled enough. Now, granted, that's nothing new. Humanity's had that forever. I mean, what do you think ninjas were? We dramatize ninjas, but the whole idea of a ninja was meant to be a political assassin or just assassin in general, sneaking into places where you felt safe, and taking you out.
それをしないってことは結構慎重だってことになるな。
多分私がスクラップ帳を持っているという確信がないからだと思うの。
Yeah, but they're worried about it, and maybe it's not entirely just the scrapbooks though. It's odd though, because like Takara was targeted, so maybe they knew, but it's interesting. If this is their only motivation, that doesn't quite line up with like chapter 1, because like in chapter 1, Keiichi didn't really have any access to Takaro and like her notes. So why was he then targeted by the guys in the white van, who now we believe are these like kind of terrorist soldier type people?
彼らはミオさんを殺し、持っていたスクラップ帳をすべて処分しようとした。ところが一番重要な数冊が抜けていた。それで自分が狙われているのを察して誰かに預けたんじゃないかと考えてるんだと思うの。その有力候補が私なんだと思う。
How'd they get to that conclusion though?
でも確証がないから強引な手段に訴えられないんだろうね。
レナ、お前かなりヤバい橋を渡ってるんじゃないのか。
Oh, brother, yeah, we are.
そうだね。ちょっと怖いかな。でもそう簡単には消されないよ。私は大石さんと連携している。有事の際に備えて常に連絡を取り合っているしね。
That's an interesting position, but like I get nervous because like in all the stories, while I do have a healthy respect for Oishi and I don't think he wants bad things to happen, he has his hands tied in a lot of ways, and I think he would allow bad things to happen if it gave him the evidence he needed to make the move to try and take down the big people, the big players.
そうだ、大石さんはどう言ってるんだよ。
大石さんも園崎家が何らかの暗躍をしていないか監視してくれてるよ。
高野さんのスクラップ帳の話は
話してない。
警察には話した方がいいだろう。
I don't know.
それに警察ならきっと力になってくれるぞ。
圭一君、私は君にだって信じてもらえるか自信がなくて話せないでいるんだよ。大石さんに話したって絶対に信じてもらえるわけがない。
I mean, the scrapbooks would at least provide the, like a setting. I think he actually might be more receptive than she thinks. I understand why she feels this way for sure, but he might be more receptive because, like, whilst the stuff in those scrapbooks is pretty crazy and ridiculous, they are clearly they seem motivated to protect that information. So at the very least, they don't want people to know about it, and that always is a good platform to move off of. And even if it's not true, if they feel it has enough truth in it, it still could be enough. I could see him being willing to accept that at least they don't want the stories in those scrapbooks to get out. He might not believe them 100%, but he might be willing to like go along with it.
なあレナ、もう煙に巻くのはなしだ。話してくれ。一体何なんだ。
Bro, trust me. If you want things to be less confusing, you don't want her to tell you.
何がスクラップ帳に書いてあるんだ。高野さんが消されるほどの何が書いてあるんだ。
簡単に言うと、このスクラップ帳に書いてあることが事実なら、彼らの神が貶められることになるの。
I'm not sure that's what I got. Is that new information that we haven't seen yet?
神を貶める？
Yeah, and by what?
そう、お社様の神聖性が失われてしまう。
Oh, but because it would be like, it would basically say, oh, the god isn't real, or it is real, though she thinks he's real. But, okay, what does she even think? I feel like we're still missing stuff.
だから、お社様信仰を復活させようとする彼らは、絶対に伏せたいと思っているの。
Oh, okay, so she's worried because it seems to provide, like, real explanations that would discredit the existence of Oyashiro.
すまん、レナ。もう少し分かりやすく言ってくれ。つまり、どういうことなんだ？
Like, this is where you said, Keiichi, I told you it wouldn't make sense. You then demanded I tell you, and I told you. And now you're telling me it doesn't make sense. Keiichi!
つまり、お社様は神様じゃないってことなの。
神様じゃない？
I had no idea why she read what she read that made her so certain, but whatever it was, it had to be sacrilegious for people who believe so strongly in Oyashiro-sama. And that's actually bizarre, because I thought she believed that. But maybe the books and the notes in here have convinced her that he's not And that would be interesting because, like, she had basically a spiritual experience with him. So what could be so compelling in these notebooks that would actually shake that faith of hers? Now, there's a lot we do know in there that I can understand would shake her faith in what her experiences were. But it's interesting because she's always seemed to be the most zealous of the people in, like, the friendship group. So why is she now not? Or maybe she is, but she's conflicted as in, like, this is what the notebook seems to do. But she doesn't know how she feels about it yet.
お社様の教えっていくつもあるけど、その原点は、それは中から出るな、外から入るなというもの。この大原則を守るために、その他の教義を発展させたと言ってもいいくらい。
Yeah, it's very isolationist.
隣人を愛せとか、家内安全とか、縁結びの神様なんてのは、本当に後から取ってつけたものでしかないの。
Okay. In other words, Oyashiro-sama existed solely to stop the villagers from going outside the village. Oyashiro-sama doesn't bless the villagers or protect them from disasters. The people believe that Oyashiro-sama did all of that for them, but the truth is that the people abused his name for that purpose, generation after generation, and nothing more than that. Why did Oyashiro-sama descend in the first place? Because demons came out of Onagafuchi Swamp and attacked people.
実はこの時点で解釈が違ってたの。鬼が湧き出して襲ったんじゃない。湧き出したものにやられると人々を襲う鬼になるの。
Okay. Yeah, so that's it. Demons didn't come out of the swamp. It was the people who became demons. Yeah, see, that tracks. That tracks a lot more, too. Now, was it a parasite? Was it a genetic mutation? That's what's kind of blurry, but still, there is like a streak of people who go kind of crazy violent. And they became the demons, or demon-blooded.
湧き出したもの？どういう意味だよ、レナ。
Whatever came out of the swamp possessed people, crawled into their blood, and controlled them and turned them into demons. People had no resistance against whatever it was that came out of the swamp. They became demons, attacked other villagers, and turned them into demons as well. That's right. It was a weird infectious disease that broke out of the swamp. Interesting. Infectious disease. That's an interesting point of view on that. That doesn't quite match up, because if it were truly an infectious disease, it would probably propagate like rapidly, unless it were a bloodborne disease, because then you could pass it on to your children. And if you got into a violent altercation with somebody who was infected and got some of their blood on you, then you could become infected. It made the infected people go out of control. The villagers saw the disaster and explained it like so. Evil demons came out from the bottom of the swamp, possessed people, turned them into demons as well. That is the truth of the story of the demons that came out of Onagafuchi Swamp.
確かに、それだと伝説をうまく説明できるな。じゃあ、お社様ってのは、ひょっとして異国から来た医者？
Interesting. Could a doctor at that time have made that conclusion?
そうだね。正確には正しくないけど、そう、医者と呼べる存在。
What a sad legacy, though, if you were like a healer, like a wise person, you know, trying to help people understand that like the random things that were happening was part because of a disease, and then they made you a deity of death as like in over time.
それが降臨して伝染病を治療したの。でも、それは治療ではなく、対処療法でしかなかった。
And what about the parasite idea? It's like she's calling it a disease here, but like, was it a parasite or a disease? All the treatment could do is reduce the symptoms of the infection. Villagers could not have their symptoms suppressed, but there was no way to kill the parasites that had infested them. Okay, so she is talking about parasites here. After a while, the village was divided into two groups. One group was made up of the people who were already infected, the other consisted of the people who weren't. Without a cure for the disease, the uninfected looked down on the people who could only suppress their violent symptoms. They even talked about drowning them in the swamp. But they knew killing the infected people wouldn't solve the problem. The parasites came out from the water sources, including Onagafuchi Swamp. They couldn't fill them all in, for if they did that, they would lose their access to drinking water. They could have chosen to leave the village, but that was hard for them, for that was the location of their ancestors' graves. Under the power of Orishiro-sama, infected people could live without showing symptoms. So both those who were infected and those who weren't decided to live together equally and coexist with the parasite. Oyashio-sama was impressed by the villagers' decision. He decided to stay there and continue to treat them.
それが親代様がこの地にとどまり人と鬼の生活を見守ったの真相か。
Oh, I like this explanation, actually. This explanation makes a lot of sense. It connects a lot of the stuff I was really struggling to, really find good answers to. But it also feels grounded in, a reality and that I can kind of accept. It's not magic, and it's not all just, a cult. The cult's there, but the cult is the result of, actions that, this could, I can accept this reality pretty well. The parasite angle is still very odd because how that would function is very bizarre because there just aren't really parasites I know of that do this. The closest I could think of would be prions, but they tend to kill people. But still, tactically a possibility. It's interesting, isn't it?
そしてお社様は感染者である村人たちに症状を出さないために掟を作った。
The symptoms of infected people remain suppressed. Also, I guess, the idea of, if you really boil it down to, the order to nobody leaves the village and nobody comes into the village. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a quarantine. If a doctor were trying to, help these people, not resorting to, really terrible things, quarantining the village and hoping that it burns out over time is actually a solid idea. And so the instructions of Oyashio-sama are: do not leave the village. You might spread this infection. Do not have new people come in. They could become infected. That's actually, I like this. I like this a lot. It's crazy because it's I shouldn't like this, right? But narratively, it's a much more satisfactory explanation than we've seen of any other kind before now. So that I'm really vibing with this. I almost want this to be the truth because it just feels right in a way. But hang on. Actually, wait a minute. So they have something that suppresses the violence, right? What could it be? Because it would be a treatment that people would be having regularly and likely wouldn't even recognize as a treatment. So maybe that could be that chemical or that component I was talking about that was native to the area. I always said there must be something in the food or something in the area that it's people are taking. I thought it could be the part of the serum, right? But it's maybe actually what's going on is that there's something in the area that's treating people and keeping them kind of pacified, and the serum, maybe it's a exacerbator. Again, though, you can also it's medicine is often a small dose of what would be considered a poison. So maybe whatever the component is that people take that helps suppress the violent tendencies of whatever the parasite or the infection does. What if the serum we see is a super dose that puts it into overdrive, takes all those violent urges and makes it such an extreme reaction that if they can't enact this violence on somebody else, they do it to themselves. There's something to that. There's definitely something to that. Okay.
その最大にして唯一のものが村から出てはいけない。
Yeah.
外から人を入れてはいけない。
So the rules are the rules of a quarantine, and the serum might be a super version or a alternative, a suppressant that would be alternative to whatever. Like a suppressant to the medication or whatever people take here in the village that helps keep everything under control.
外から人を入れてはいけないってのはわかるぜ。感染者を増やさないためだろ。
Exactly.
でも出てはいけないってのはどういう意味なんだ？
Because if people who are infected leave, they could spread it.
寄生虫たちは気候や風土の関係で、このHinamizawaの地でしか生きられないらしい。
That's my big there, because it's yeah, I can understand if it's hypersensitive to climate, it would be important. But the climate in Hinamizawa is not unique, not at all. Maybe this parasite would struggle to flourish in most of the world, but the atmosphere and the climate around Hinamizawa, it can't be so specialized that leaving the village would not just cure you of the parasite if that were the case, if it were that sensitive. people should then leave Hinamizawa because then the parasite dies.
だから宿主である感染者がこの地を離れようとすると強い症状を出してそれを妨害するの。
Alright, well, there you go. There's a decent explanation. I'm not a huge fan of that part, but I could kind of see it. Especially if this is a parasite slash prion that does understand that it needs to be nearby this area. It could try and motivate people, like it talked about before, like how mice will stop being afraid of cats in order to get eaten.
その妨害こそがいわゆるお社様のたたりの正体。
The strongest symptoms of the infectious disease are violence and delirium. The infected people acted just like demons, and the impact of seeing them in such throes of the disease is strong enough to make others describe them as such. Oh, wait a minute. Then maybe the serum is just the infection, right? Like if it's a parasite, what if it's like the parasite collected from the swamp? And so you're injected with a massive burst of it, and the result is that you become hyper violent. Interesting. They couldn't even let people leave who had come to the village. If they had left after being infected, they might go crazy in a faraway land, turning into a vicious demon and causing a disaster. Infected people were never allowed to leave. When an infected person left the village, they brought him back by any means necessary. That was what it literally meant to be demoned away. Oh, cool. So, like, the people who die might be just a result of, like, the curse, the curse flying out. Being demoned away was basically being kidnapped to make sure you didn't stay away from the village.
ちょっと待てよレナ。だとしたら俺やレナも村人はみんなその病気に感染してることになるよな。でも俺たちはひなみ沢を離れたって別に何の問題もないぞ。
Well,
実際村人にも結婚したりして遠方に住んでる人も少なくないらしいじゃないか。ひなみ沢をちょっと離れたからって錯乱して鬼と化したなんて聞いたことないぞ。
そう。それはまさにお社様の目論見通りにことが進んだからなんだよ。意味がわかるかな。この村を長い間封印してきたのは、寄生虫の害を弱めるためなの。
Yeah, so it was about suppressing it, and probably like the quarantine basically worked. A majority of people are no longer infected. Hosts are very important for parasites. If something happened to the host, the parasite that lived in the host had to share the same fate. In other words, if the host went crazy and attacked people, the host would be captured and killed, which meant the parasite would die with the host too.
そうか。自然淘汰か。
さすが圭一君。そう。この地で長く生活を重ね、厳しい戒律で生活を続けた結果、寄生虫に対し過敏な人間は錯乱して、結局殺された。また、感染者を錯乱させてしまうような強すぎる寄生虫は、これもまた、錯乱した宿主と共に殺された。
And in fact, Orishiro-sama's curse might have actually just been them killing the people who became too violent, purging themselves. But they did it under the guise of a religious rite, and thus it was like, okay, that really flips the Orishiro-sama thing on its head, because that becomes a genuine benefit. Like these practices and these like traditions are like genuinely a beneficial thing.
その結果、寄生虫と人間は互いに相性がいい種だけが残っていった。これこそがお社様の伝説が伝える鬼と人の血は混じり合ったことの真相。
That's wild.
じゃあ、つまりその寄生虫はほとんど無害なわけなのか。
Almost. But then you can get the extracted pure parasite form from the swamp and make the people go mad.
ミオさんのスクラップ帳によると、そういった無害な寄生虫に感染しているケースというのはかなり多いんだって。
Oh yeah. In fact, if you go on the small scale, we all rely on parasites. There's a lot of gut bacteria that help us digest food they're externals. They live in our gut. They eat our food with us, but in return we've used them, and they become a part of our natural biology. In fact, there's a really strong case to believe that a lot of like the structures of cells in our bodies are made up of little microbes that way back in the day were like their own entities, but then like as they got absorbed into each other, they kind of became partners and got involved in systems. Like this idea of like survival by cooperation is a very fundamental part of just evolution in general.
食文化にもよるけど、 例えば生肉を食べる国では国民の8割くらいが感染している例もあるんだって。
Probably.
でも矯正できてて人体に全く無害だから誰も治療しない。だから撲滅もされない。
なるほどな。
太古の綿流しはね、実は腹綿流しと書く物騒なものでね。
Yeah. But that was the whole ceremonial killing, which was crazy violent still. So what's that all about?
錯乱した犠牲者の臓腑を食らうものだったの。
Why would they do that?
でもこれも必要なことだった。
感染して犠牲になった人を食らう。まさかワクチンとか？
Whoa, what?
圭一君はやっぱり頭がいいね。
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works though. Vaccination, you like trying to inoculate yourself with parts of like the bad parasite, but the parasite they're arguing about is like the same. It's just some strains of that parasite are more violent. You don't inoculate yourself in that way. That doesn't quite make sense, but it's an interesting theory.
ミオさんもそう読み解いてる。伝説では犠牲者を生きたまま解体して食らったなんて物騒なことになっているけど、実際はそんな野蛮なものじゃなくて、もっともっと医学的に取り扱われていたらしいの。
Very scientific considering how old it happened.
強すぎる寄生虫のせいで死んだ犠牲者からワクチンを作り出し、同時に村人の抵抗力も高めていった。
Huh.
お社様ってのは何者なんだよ一体？
Yeah, he sounds like freaking like a doctor from the future.
医学先進国っていうとドイツか？正体はひょっとしてナンパして流れ着いた外国人医師？
I was like, was he German?
多分圭一君の答えが一番一般的だと思う。ドイツ人ではないんだけど、とりあえず医者的な存在であったのは正解。
古代の伝説の秘密が明かされていくってのはなんだか面白いな。
There's a part of me that's still a bit skeptical because there's not all these pieces are quite so snug, right? It doesn't explain everything. But my goodness, is it a much more appealing explanation than most everything else I've done. I don't think the Rena story is too crazy to be true anymore. It still sounds crazy, of course, but I've never heard any theories that explain the legend of this village better than this one. That's basically my thing. I don't like how the game is basically like summarizing to me my like how I feel about it as well, because like that's exactly the conclusion I was just explaining. But the game does that occasionally. Like I'll ask a question and immediately it answers it. But it shows actually what it really shows, honestly, is that the writer of the story understood his audience. He understands kind of like where we probably are like conceptually at this point in the story and can address it almost immediately, which is fantastically talented, honestly. I don't know very many writers that actually can do that.
多分俺も感染してるんだよな。なんだか体中が痒くなってくるぜ。
人間だって一つの宇宙だよ。体の中には無数の細菌たちが住んでいる。その中には私たちの生活には欠かせない有用な細菌たちも少なくないんだよ。
Just what I was saying.
ああ、よくヨーグルトとかの CM で言ってるよな。
Exactly.
確かにそうだ。
これもミオさんの受け売りだけど、例えばシロアリっているでしょ？
Yeah.
木材を食い荒らしてしまうアリ。実はシロアリって木材を消化できないんだって。体内に寄生している特殊な細菌が食べた木材の繊維を分解してくれて、これも寄生虫と共生している一例だね。
I didn't know that. When I hear the word parasite, I feel creeped out almost instinctively, but now I know some of them aren't so bad for us.
だから太古の昔に鬼ヶ淵村から突如発生した奇怪な伝染病は今ではほぼ根絶されたと言っていい。
But it can be weaponized.
根絶じゃないね。
Yeah.
無害になったと言うべきだね。
最初はとんでもない話だと思ってたけどさ、こうして種明かしがされるとなんだかサイエンスな感じがしてちょっと面白い話だよな。
It is interesting.
私たちには面白いよ。でもお社様を神として崇める人たちにとってはこれはとても不愉快な説。
That's true because it undermines the whole cult. Of course. If Takeout-san's theory is correct, Oyashiro-sama isn't a god. And the punishment of God is namely the curse of Oyashiro-sama that people have been so afraid of will turn out to have just been the symptoms of an infectious disease. but it also invalidates their ability to execute people they don't like anymore. Yeah, okay, yeah. I see. That's what dethroning God would mean.
だとすると、もしこの伝染病の病原体を特定して世間に発表されるようなことがあれば、信仰は破綻しちまうな。
そう。
Oh, now we're Rena's.
それこそが彼らの一番恐れることなの。そしてミオさんはその病原体を特定しようとしていたらしい。そのミオさんが消されたということは
特定できたってことが。
かもしれないね。ミオさんはもういないし、彼女のスクラップ帳にも特定できたとは書かれていない。でも消されるに値する理由が他に思いつかないの。
Well, I don't think she was a biologist. I don't know if she could have.
でもよ、20世紀ももうすぐ終わろうっていう現代だぜ。村人だっていろんな医療機関で検査を受けてきたはずだ。なのにそういう怪しげな寄生虫が摘出されたって話はないんだろう。
確かに病原体そのものは未だ発見されていない。でも確かに何かの寄生を受けていることの信号だけは確認されているんだって。
What's that?
なんだって？本当かよ。
When the parasite enters the human body, the body's immune cells, ensophiles, and macrophages try to kill the parasite. They secrete an antibody called immunoglobulin E, IgE. The most common way of checking if a person is infected by a pathogen is to look at the levels of this secretion. According to Takano's research, people from Hinamizawa have very high level of IgE in their blood. That's not all. They also have obvious symptoms of being infected by parasites. They don't have any allergies. IgE stimulates mast cells, and they secrete histamines and serotonins as a result. This causes an allergic reaction. That allergic reaction isn't pleasant for humans, but it's necessary for the body to kill the pathogen. But the parasites don't want to be killed. Of course, they secrete substances that counter IgE. As a result, IgE stops stimulating the receptors of the mast cells, which stops secreting the chemical compounds. As a result, the antigen-antibody reaction, namely the allergic reaction, doesn't occur. Whoa, wait a minute. I don't have any allergies. Well, I have one allergy. I'm sensitive to some types of artificial sweeteners. But does that mean that people who have no allergies tend to are more likely infected by pathogens? That's interesting. In other words, a human body that was infected by a parasite secretes a high level of IgE but doesn't display allergic reactions. For your information, a human body that's infected by a parasite doesn't suffer from hay fever. Yeah, I don't. You get hay fever due to your body secreting a large amount of IgE because it's mistaken pollen for a parasitic infection or invasion. As a result, a large amount of stimulants like histamines will be secreted, but your body can't contain the parasite that it's attempting to kill. That's why your body continues to secrete IgE. As a result, the stimulation keeps causing allergic reactions. That's how hay fever works. If you have a parasite in your body, it'll deactivate your IgE and suppress the secretion of stimulants. As a result, you don't have an allergic reaction. In other words, there's no hay fever in Hinamizawa, and you can cure your hay fever by moving here. I mean, that's something.
つまり特定はできなくてもその存在だけは疑いようがないってわけだ。
God, does that mean I have a parasite of some kind?
そうなるね。
だとすると、そのスクラップ帳は狂信的な連中にとっては十分危険な存在だな。たとえ特定できなくても存在を証明している時点で十分に危険だと思うぞ。
そうだね。たとえ証拠にはならなくても、彼らにとってはミオさんを葬るに値する危険性があったと思う。
I will say though that while this is very fun and I do enjoy this explanation, there is a nagging, there's a few threads that don't make sense. I've already mentioned, but one of the big ones now that I'm just thinking of is that what about the whole like super death from the lake? How is that involved in all of this? Because that was always like supposed to be like a punishment. It's like, did this really brilliant scientist person also recognize that like there might be a case where like the parasite could evolve and like start spreading and maybe had like some kind of like kill switch, which is what we see, like some type of like way to make that happen artificially, or is that just dumb luck?
確かに恐ろしい秘密だな。ちゃんと説明してもらえば理解できることだが、いきなり聞いたら 刺激が強すぎる話だぜ。
It also doesn't explain what Rika is. Rika's definitely got something crazy going on with her. So, like, what's that about?
でしょ？だから私も最初は信じられなかったし、圭一君に話しても信じてもらえないと思った。
で、大事なのはその事実を隠蔽しようと暗躍してるヤバい連中がいるって方なんだよな。
そう、今大事なのはそっちの方。
The fanatics that want to revive the sanctity of the god they worship. Reviving the majesty of their god means reviving the power of that god. And the power of that god is the infectious disease. The infectious disease can't spread nationwide unlike other infectious diseases. So from now on, I'm going to start calling it an endemic disease. It fits better since it only affects this region. Anyway, the endemic disease currently Hinamizawa is different from the one of old times. It's been through the process of natural selection and it's harmless now. In other words, it doesn't do any harm to human bodies. The harm it once interpreted as a curse, the curse is the power of a god, so a harmless endemic disease means that the god is powerless. That means the only way to regain the majesty of the god is to revive the curse. In other words, they want to bring back the primitive endemic disease, namely the harmful, strong version of the parasite.
ちょっと待てよ。信者たちは神が実は寄生虫だったなんてことは否定したいんだろう。なのに寄生虫を研究するのかよ。
Yeah, it's like they want their cake and want to eat it too.
矛盾してないか。
矛盾しているよ。だからこの研究は信者たちのトップだけが知る秘密の研究なんだと思う。彼らは表向きは信仰を盛り上げているけど、その裏では信仰の正体について極めて冷静に理解していて、神の技を自らの手で復活させようとしている。
I guess if you take it from that angle, you could try and be saying it could turn people into super soldiers, make them incredibly loyal, makes them very strong, being willing to do terrible acts in your name. There is something to that.
なるほどな。おいおい、なんだかとんでもない話になってきたぞ。
ミオさんのスクラップ帳にはそうとは一言も書かれてないんだけど、
Oh.
私監督の診療所って怪しいと思うの。
Irie. Do you think Irie's involved in the research side of this? That's interesting. Like, I've been thinking he's been involved in stuff for a while now, but I didn't think this would be his angle.
異例診療所がどうして？
ひなみ沢の規模から見て施設が立派すぎるのがその理由。
Interesting. That's an interesting take.
そしてミオさんはそこに勤めていた。
Oh, so she might be a bit on no.
監督は園崎家にスカウトされてきた細菌学者が正体とか。
Okay. Huh.
監督がか？
ミオさんは余計なことを知りすぎたから消されたんだと思うの。
Oh, interesting. And then, like, he also, Dr. Irie, in like a couple of the endings, he like takes his own life, right? And everyone thinks it's really odd. But maybe he gets targeted because he was maybe willing to, like, he was considering like revealing too much.
なのに監督が消されない理由は、監督は信者たちに依頼されている立場だから。
Okay, interesting.
そして太古の有害な風土病を研究してるってのか。
And maybe that's what the serum is. The serum might be the primitive form.
あの監督が。
ごめん、監督は無関係かもしれないね。今のは私の思いつき。でも研究は間違いなくどこかで誰かにさせている。
Okay.
そしてその研究には5年かかり、ついに完成を見た。
The research has been completed, and that might be, is that another reason? Maybe that's why the rest of this ends. Like, maybe the gas leak is artificial and it's meant to erase all the details here. They have the parasite, they can weaponize it, but now they want to erase any connection it has so it can be deployed with no trace. The first case was a dismemberment murder by the damned construction workers. Their quarrel had turned into a lynching. That might have had a primitive infectious disease, and the symptoms, the aggression and delirium, might have kicked in. The victims of the second year were Satoko's parents. There were no witnesses, so the whole event is veiled in mystery, but there's a theory that someone might have pushed them over a cliff, since the fence at the observation deck that they fell from was quite sturdy. Yeah, I was thinking that too. What if one of them was infected by the primitive parasite? He or she might have become violent or pushed the other over the cliff. Oh, well, like, so Satoko's dad died, but her mom went missing. So maybe she snapped, and then she was taken away for research. And they have we also have established that they have hidden tunnels underneath the mountains. They have the ancient ones from the Sonozaki family, but what if there's another set of tunnels? Like the whole area is full of volcanic mountains, so there's very possible there's another area that's been hidden, and one of those has become a research facility. Ooh, okay. And so when people get demoned away, the people who get demoned away are the ones that snap. Oh my gosh, think about that. So yeah. Okay. So they start experimenting with this primitive parasite, right? They infect one person. That person commits a murder. The murder is then it happens, and then the person who caused the murder is taken away to be experimented on, likely killed, and the parasite's harvested from them, right? Because the parasite would need a host. So the host, they put the parasite in a person, and then they harvest that strain. And over time, they've been making them more and more violent, more and more pure, purified, right? And that also would explain how Takano, in that one ending, she ended up, it was heavily implied that she's the one that ended up killing Toмотaka-san. And then she gets spirited away. So maybe that's the whole point, is that they infected her. She becomes violent and delirious, killing him. But he gets killed with the serum, right? So maybe not that. But then think of Keiichi as well. He gets infected too. And how much you want to bet, if we went back through the story, how many times do people who go to the clinic then start displaying the symptoms? So they get a shot from Dr. Irie, and then and that infects them, and they become crazy. And Dr. Irie gets called whenever someone gets murdered like that, and gets involved in the autopsy too. Okay, there's a lot of stuff that starts making sense there. The Shinto priest died from a disease, and his wife drowned herself in the third year. He might have died of shock because of hypersensitive reaction to the infection. His wife might have gone crazy and committed suicide when one of the symptoms, delirium, kicked in. In the 4th year, Satoshi Hyojo's aunt was beaten to death, probably by Satoshi himself. Everybody who knew Satoshi remembered how he changed at the time. He showed signs of being both aggressive and delirious. In the 5th year, for the first time in 5 years, the victim experienced the maggot disease described in the old scroll of the Furude Shrine. The reason behind it is unclear, but the strong primitive parasite could have given its victim a delusion of maggots. Okay, yeah. So the shot is the primitive parasite. It means that they finally managed to duplicate the curse of Orishiro-sama after 5 years of research. And it's the end. So then they pull the kill switch once they've succeeded in duplicating the results. And that also explains how people could have been selected to die from a long time before. They were selected because they were selected because they were ideal hosts for the parasite to cultivate this supreme primal parasite. That would explain why they were picked when they were, and why it was pre-chosen from way back. Toмотaka-san's the victim of the 5th year. He died in an extremely abnormal way, and I'm the only one who understands his death because I experienced the same thing. He kept clawing at his throat to get rid of the maggots and died as a result. With all that explained, I finally understood the maggot disease I experienced in Ibaraki. I left Hinamizawa and it made the parasite in me uncomfortable. As a result, it tried to resist, even though it wasn't very strong, and it tried to make me homesick. But with my parents' divorce, I grew mentally imbalanced and completely lost the power to resist for a period of time. The parasite was weak and harmless, but my mental instability allowed it to worsen my symptoms dramatically. Oh my gosh, as a result, I went crazy and became violent. The delusion of Orishiro-sama appearing to me in the bathroom was probably the terminal phase of my delirium. I created a supernatural existence, Orishiro-sama, that I was instilled with when I was little. Then I persuaded myself to go back to Hinamizawa based on the delusion. And this would also offer the explanation of the footsteps that people are hearing being part of that delirium, but a muted version of it, where they just feel like there's someone walking right behind them all the time. It's a softer version of that delirium. Some of the transcendents of Onagafuchi must have had the same kind of experience. They must have passed their experience down as acts of God. I remember I once saw on TV that indigenous people in South America used some kind of natural drug in order to have a mystical experience, and that they called it a ritual to communicate with their gods.
その太古の寄生虫をHinamizawa中にばらまくことなのか。
多分それが最終目的だと思う。
But how insane is that? If that's all true and that were the motivation, that's utter madness. Why would you do that?
でも人知れずにそれをやることはないと思うの。宗教にはセレモニーが必要だから。
Oh, so her theory is that they revive the ceremony, and that way, like, it gives people a way to channel that, like the odd things that start happening into a specific direction that gives them control.
だからもし彼らが望むものを生み出せてそれをばらまく日が訪れたなら、彼らは多分それをお社様の復活の日とでも称して宗教的なデモンストレーションをすると思うの。
And is that what's supposed to happen, like this year? Like, because like the ritual with Rika, is she supposed to be like the day of Oyashiro-sama's revival?
何か特別な儀式とか、とにかくお社様の復活を祝い知らしめるような盛大な何か。
Yeah, that would make sense actually, because she's supposed to be like, she's the symbol of like Oyashiro-sama, like she's supposed to be like the carrying the spirit of Oyashiro-sama. So sacrificing her would be like kind of the ultimate bringing about of that revival potentially.
なあ、それってよ、悪いことなんだよな。
Yeah. Oh, then wait a minute. What if that's what happens? What if like maybe it wasn't gas, like it, because there were some odd things that happened where like it felt like everyone died of the gas, but maybe they didn't. Maybe the gas was just like a potential explanation, because they couldn't explain why everyone would just drop dead in the middle of the night, right? But Keiichi was in a low part of the valley and he didn't die of it. So maybe they did release the parasite. Like they released it into like the drinking water or something, but they made a mistake. They made an error. They cultivated something so primal, so strong that it like actually kills all the people. Like it was too like overwhelming. The Keiichi had already been infected, and maybe he hadn't drank any of the water or something, or you know, like I'm just spitballing here. But this idea maybe is everyone dies because they tried to, so they ritually sacrifice Rika, and then they release the parasite en masse, but it doesn't work like they expect it to, and it just ends up killing everybody who might have already been infected with the old version of the parasite or something, and that's why everyone in the village just basically drops dead.
危険性の高い病原体をばらまこうというんだから、多分悪いことに分類されるだろうね。
それって最近テロって言わないか。
Basically, yes.
おい、めちゃくちゃやばいことだぞ。おい、富武さんの死に方がお社様のたたりの再現に成功していた以上、X デーは間近ってことなんじゃないのか。
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it is.
わからない。もう秒読みなのか、まだまだ時間のかかることなのか。
もうこれはレナ一人が抱えていい問題じゃないぞ。かなり笑えない大陰謀だぞ。
Yeah.
俺たちにはどうしようもない。警察に任す方がないぞ。
私が話したこと、警察は信じてくれると思う？
信じるかどうか向こうが判断するだろう。とにかく話した方がいい。
He's kind of got a point there. He's just like, look, even if they don't believe us, at least the information gets out.
ケイチ君、それを大石さんに私が打ち明けたら、私がスクラップ帳を持っていることを告白するのと同じ。
それってまずいのか。
大石さんの接触はミオさんが殺された後だった。敵はミオさんを殺した時点でスクラップ帳の紛失とその数日前に私が図書館で出会っていることを知っている。
バカな。つまり。
Oh, does she think he's involved with them?
そう、大石さん自体が敵の手先である可能性がある。
It's a mistake, but it's an understandable one. I am suspicious of his partner, though. I think his partner might be involved.
大石さんは私がスクラップ帳を持っている可能性があると当たりをつけていて、探りを入れてきているのかもしれない。
But that makes sense. I can see why she'd be suspicious.
実際、彼はうさんくさくて腹を割らない。園崎家を疑わせるようなことを言って、自分は味方だと言ってくるけど、彼だってその園崎家の手先かもしれない。
It really is too bad though, because like I get why she makes that read, and she's kind of like onto some things that she's right. But he genuinely thinks that the conspiracy is just the Sonozaki's. He sees it just as the cult / like Yakuza angle, and he's so like fixated on it that it unfortunately makes him look suspicious in a way.
警察を疑い出したらおしまいだぞ。
圭一くん、4年目の撲殺事件を知ってるよね。さとこちゃんのおばさんが殺された事件。あれは犯人はサトシくん以外に考えられないんだけど、その後
Yeah.
犯人は麻薬中毒者だったということになった。
Oh yeah, and the random drug addict accepted the fault.
これをどう思う？
警察内部に狂信的な連中の手先が混じっていて、犯人を捏造したってことか。
3年目の神主さんの病死の検視とか、2年目の北条夫妻の事故現場の見聞とか。
Yeah.
警察がもしも彼らの片棒を担いでいるなら、数々の完全犯罪が可能になる。
It's true.
hinamizawa御三家はダム戦争時から今日に至るまでもずっと警察への圧力を維持してるんだよ。それに沖宮の町のいろんなところに一族が進出して実権を握っているというのは、
Oh my
兄ちゃんから聞かさ
gosh.
れたことがあるんじゃない？
Oh, this is getting really bad.
確かに。それはミオンの口からだけじゃない。いろんな奴の口から聞かされたミオンの園崎家がどれだけ市内全域に強力な影響力を持っているかってのをな。
そういうこと。警察はこの土地では必ずしも信用できない。
レナ、すまん。先にはっきりさせたいんだが、黒幕は園崎家なのか？
I'm not sure anymore. I think they're definitely involved, but we also got tips that Oreo is like not 100% sure what's going on.
ミオンも関係があるってのか？それだけは先に聞かせてくれ。
御三家であるみーちゃんやリカちゃんが直接関係しているかはわからない。
But yeah, this is gonna be the biggest problem with trusting Keiichi. Is like, can he keep his cool?
ただ狂信的な勢力が御三家や一番の有力家である園崎家を自由に動かせる中枢部に根付いているのは間違いない。
Mm-hmm.
狂信的な勢力が根付いたのか、御三家の中枢が狂信的なのかは分かりかねるけどね。
That's a great question.
関係あるかどうかわからない以上、用心に越したことはないってわけだな。
Yep. Keiichi, actually, that's probably why she approached you. Because, like, you're kind of an outsider to all of this. And then the next person she could try to trust might be Satoko, but Satoko's still so young. And so emotionally involved in this, it might be unwise to bring her in.
みーちゃんたちのことを疑うわけじゃないよ。普段のみーちゃんは頼もしいし、私も他の心配事なら打ち明けて助力を求めることもあると思う。
Because we don't know how involved she is, and even if she's like a little bit involved, she might inadvertently, like, basically betray us, whether intentional or not.
ただ、今回のことはちょっと話の次元が違う。圭一くんは見たことあるかな？みーちゃんは普段はふざけているけど、園崎家の次期当主として振る舞うときはものすごく冷酷で別人みたいに振る舞えるの。
This is why Rena is such a good person to be so involved in this. Like when she's given these options and the truth, and she'd be able to like try working things out. She's so calculating. She sees and observes so much. She's genuinely probably the best person that we could have getting this information.
それにもし無関係だったとしても、それならばやはり耳に入れることで危険に巻き込むことにもなるんじゃないかな。
ミオンたちが味方になってくれればかなり頼もしいぞ。俺は打ち明ける価値があると思うんだが。
だからそれはダメ。敵ではないと確認が取れるまでそれは避けるべきだよ。
And how on earth do we do that?
味方にできれば確かに心強いけど、そうでなかった時はどうするつもり？
じゃあ俺とレナだけでどう戦うつもりなんだよ。
もともと最初から絶望的な戦いなんだよ。だから圭一くんを巻き込みたくなかった。
くそ、高野さんめ、とんでもない置き土産を残してくれたな。
Hey, it's something though.
でもそのおかげでとてつもない陰謀を知ることができたんだよ。これはミオさんの遺言なんだよ。
村を影から牛耳る何者かに。こいつは最高にハードな話だぜ。
Oh, understatement of the year.
一筋縄じゃいかねえぞ。
でも圭一くんが味方でよかったよ。二人だから話し合えて相談できる。
So, no, don't screw this up, man.
当たり前だろ。 俺は最初からずっとレナの味方で仲間だぞ。
ありがとう。二人なら心強いよ。
一人で悩むよりは建設的になれるだろうしな。
そうだね。二人でどう戦えばいいか、これからじっくり相談していこう。
Let's do it.
今日は私、スクラップ帳を読み直す時間が欲しかったから休んだけど、明日からは普段通りに生活するね。おかしな行動をすれば、気取られてしまうかもしれないからね。ケイチ君も変に構えないで普段通りに生活してね。みーちゃんとか、時折鋭いことがあるから、特に気をつけて。
Yeah. And that's even if she's Mion, not Shion.
わかった。何事もなかったかのように生活するよ。だが畜生、なんだか怖いぜ。
Yeah, I know.
とんでもない陰謀が間近に迫ってて、それがもうカウントダウンに入ってるかもしれないってんだぜ。それを知りつつ普段通りに生活しろってのも辛い話だよな。
Yeah, unfortunately, this might be the bigger mistake. Like, it's good that she's trusting him, and I think that's it's a net plus, but I feel like he's gonna be... he's not great at keeping secrets.
多分そんなにすぐじゃないはずなの。さっきも言った通り、彼らが狂信的であればあるほど、そういうセレモニーは村を挙げて行うものだもの。綿流し以上のイベントは今のひなみ沢には存在しない。
Interesting. So her theory is the next Watanagashi would be the next event.
ということは少なくとも来年の綿流しまでは大丈夫ということか。
根拠のない読みだけどね。他に綿流し以上のイベントが思いつかない。
Yeah. I think we have a year at least. But I also feel like we don't because of how they killed Mio-san. I might not know, but there might be a bigger religious event than Watanagashi. It might not be long until that day. Yeah, okay. So, like, maybe the other event is, like, an older ritual or a more private one. On the day of Oyoshi-Osama's revival, they're going to spread a dangerous parasite. The day might be just around the corner.
レイナ、まだ電話してるのか？そろそろ終わりにしなさい。
My father stuck his head in from the living room, telling me I need to hang up soon. I thought about telling him so many times. It's natural to think your parents will be on your side no matter what. But I know just how weak he can get, so I couldn't tell him. I don't think he'd believe me anyway. Even if I told him, he'd just tell me to call the police. It's better I don't tell him. They might get close to my father to get to me. If he didn't know anything about anything, including the scrapbook, there'd be nothing to squeeze out of him to begin with.
ごめんねケイチ君、今夜はもう遅いからこれで切るね。また明日学校で。
おう、また明日。
用心してね。ケイチ君ももう部外者じゃないんだから。
Like, I don't know if I'm just like seeing weird, but like the letters don't look white anymore. They look like blue.
おう、せいぜい気をつけるぜ。
I remember the suspicious men in white van and have felt a chill run through my spine. They looked like villagers, but they weren't. They had the villager accent, but they were just pretending. The more I thought about it, the more suspicious they became. It let me know that Rena and I aren't safe. If Rena's right, they're just as suspicious of her, and they're not sure if she has the scrapbooks or not. But that's still creepy. Rena had probably experienced the same creepiness I felt when I saw the van several times up until now. She must sense the danger more than I do. However, the fact that they weren't attacking, that they were merely observing us, was disturbing. If they attacked her, she could have done something like go to the police. But all they're doing is just watching her from a distance. She can't do anything about it. She can't even talk to anyone about it. She probably just wants to stay in her house all day. Well, I mean, she could try and report like a stalking, but I mean, what can the police even really do about that? But if she acted differently, they might take it as proof that she has the scrapbooks. We have to think about how to fight against them without making it obvious. I told myself there's no going back, and I put the phone down. Oh, that was so refreshing of a Higurashi episode. Very in depth, but I really liked it. I really liked that explanation. Next day, Rena came to school acting normal like she said she would. I have to wrap up soon now. She talked to Mion as cheerfully as she always did, and made me wonder if the story she told me last night was complete fabrication. That's because the story really was too ridiculously crazy to believe. This village had a very weird or rare endemic disease, and there are religious fanatics who want to use the disease to revive their weird cult. And they've been researching the pathogen of the endemic disease so they can spread it throughout the village. I was deeply influenced by Rena last night, and I believed everything she said. But thinking about it with a cool mind under the bright sunlight, it sounds too crazy to be true. The story Rena told me is based on Takano-san's crazy hand-me-down ideas. It's based entirely on her theories, which, though very feasible, have no evidence whatsoever. The fact that Takano-san was murdered lends credit to the story, I'll give you that, but... I looked at Mion. She was fooling around with Rena. It's hard to believe that she's involved in some crazy conspiracy.
ていうか、聞いてないでしょ、ケイちゃん。
悪い。ごめん、聞いてなかった。
まだ寝ぼけたまんまなのかな？寝不足だとおつむもちゃんと働かないよ。
Mion made fun of me for reacting too slowly. It's almost impossible not to trust this bubbly, cheerful girl. I trust Mion. I trust my friends. I know she'd never have a hand in crazy conspiracy like that. If she knew about it, she wouldn't be able to act this cheerfully. Rena told me not to tell Mion because she might be one of them. But it might be worth telling her without letting Rena know. Oh no. Of course, there's at least a 1% chance the conspiracy's true and that Mion is one of them, so I'd be doomed. But if I had to choose between believing a crazy conspiracy theory and trusting my friends, my answer would be obvious. I know that my friend Mion isn't a part of any conspiracy. She'd never be involved in something like that. Bro, she's currently involved in obscuring a murder that you're involved with too. It's not that far-fetched. Even if the conspiracy exists, I'm sure Mion would be on our side. So whether or not it's true, it must be worth telling Mion about it. That's dangerous thinking.
なあに、ケイちゃん。
Oh no.
こんなところに呼び出して。
Don't.
それも誰にも内緒で来いなんてさ。
Don't.
まさか、カツアゲとかそういうのじゃないよね。
お前な、体育倉庫の裏に呼ばれたら、真っ先にそう思うのかよ。
Please don't do this.
じゃあ、ラブレターとか？
Oh, you wish.
でもそういうのは下駄箱が定番じゃない？
都会じゃそうでもないぞ。直接渡す白兵線型も少なくない。
She's like, holy crap, is that actually happening?
じゃあ、
なわけねえだろ。
Aww.
それより、かなり真面目な話がある。茶化しは一切なしで聞いてくれ。
Gosh darn it, Keiichi. Why? Red asked you one thing.
何よ。どうしたの？
お社様信仰を復活させようとしている連中がいる。ってのは知ってるか？
は？何、ケイちゃん。何の話？
This, of course, was my way of getting the feel of the situation. I wanted to see how she was going to react by getting straight to the point. But Mion really did look puzzled. People wouldn't normally react like this if someone pointed out their secrets out of the blue. They would always panic, if only just a little. Even Mion was a brilliant actress, so she didn't have anything to do with the idea of reviving Orishio-sama. Yeah, I decided to tell her everything. Gosh darn it, Keiichi. You can't even just go one day? Why didn't you just talk to her about it?
ミオ、お前の家の園崎家って、Hinamizawaを含め、ものすごい影響力を持ってるわけだけどさ。
Oh, he's so stupid.
お社様信仰を復興するため、何か暗躍してるってことは、あるか？
こう？なんで？
いや、だからさ。
Don't trust that face!
今のお社様信仰って、大昔の時代に比べたら、だいぶ信仰心が薄くなってるだろ。それをさ、大昔の鬼ヶ淵村のレベルまで引き戻したいと思っている。いわゆる原理主義者的な連中が暗躍をしてるんじゃないかって。
Shut up, Keiichi, shut up!
はい？ちょっと、何の話なわけ？
本当に何の話かわからないのか？
わかるわけないよ。何その全米第1位みたいな面白ストーリーはさ。
Mion's reaction was very natural. It seemed impossible she's pretending she didn't know anything about it. But regardless, I continued. Shut up, Keiichi!
いや、だからそういう連中がこの村にいるらしいんだよ。ミオは知らないか？
お社様信仰を鬼ヶ淵村の時代のレベルに？そんなことして何かいいことあるの？
いや、そりゃ信仰の厚い狂信的な連中にとってはとても重要な意味があるんじゃないかな。
He's not wrong about that.
だってケイちゃん、大昔の厳しい戒律の頃に逆戻りって誰も喜ばないよ。今のこの現代、村から出るななんて言われたら生活なんかやってられないって。
例えばほら、 リカちゃんってなんでもお社様の生まれ変わりとか言ってちやほやされてるらしいだろ。そういった取り巻きの老人たちの中にはきっと狂信的な。
リカちゃんの取り巻きっていうと君吉のおじいちゃんとかのこと？
Okay, interesting. So Kimiyoshi, the mayor, he might be more involved in the fanatical cult revival side of things.
まあ確かに信仰心は熱い方だと思うけど、狂信
Okay.
的ってのはどうかと思うね。
So the Sonozakis are about the political side of things, but the religious side of things might be led by Kimiyoshi, like in the cult side of it, not the actual like operation of it, but the cult.
いやだからいるんだよ。本来のお社様信仰を再び復活させようとしている輩が。
Keiichi, shut up. Keiichi,
はいはい。
shut up. Keiichi, stop talking about this, please.
話が進まないからこの場は信じるよ。
No.
それで
でそいつらはお社様の正体がこの土地独特の風土病にあることを突き止め、その病原体を研究しているらしいんだ。
Why would you just betray Rena like this? Why?
どこで？というか風土病って何？病原体って何よ？演歌長。
I was getting confused. I don't know what I was talking about myself anymore. I was deeply influenced by Rena last night, and I believed everything she said. But having said it all out loud, I started realizing how impossible the story sounded.
どうしたの？ミオさんに妙なことでも吹き込まれたわけ？
知ってるのか？
有名だよ。あの人オカルトマニアだからいつもとんでもない空想話をでっち上げてる。
Oh no.
たまに真に受ける人がいるとかなりヘビーに吹き込むって有名なんだよ。私も昔話を聞かせてもらったことがあったけど結構面白かったな。
それって本当か？
ケイちゃんもどこかで耳にしてるだろうけど、この村は大昔はちょっと特殊な文化があった。
Oh.
それは少し刺激の強い要素のある文化でね。厳しい戒律と厳しい刑罰、残酷な風習は割とオカルトマニアの間では知られてるらしい。
But you know that that's real!
ミオさんもそんなマニアの中の一人。
じゃあこの村が怪しげな寄生虫に支配されているという話は？
はあ？寄生虫？それミオさんの新作？
Gosh darn it, it actually makes more sense than most of them though.
新作ってどういうことだよ？
言ったでしょ、ミオさんはオカルトマニアなの。鬼ヶ淵村の奇怪な伝説などを研究してあれやこれやの仮説や推理、妄想を楽しんでるわけよ。だからその寄生虫に村が支配されてるって説以外にもいろいろ創作してる。私がずいぶん前に聞いたのは UFO 説だったよ。これが結構辻褄が合ってて面白いの。太古の昔に鬼ヶ淵村に UFO が墜落して、そこから出てきた異星人と村人で戦いが起こってという感じから始まる B 級 SF ホラーだった。
Oh, at this stage that would make sense too though.
サトコが聞かされたってのは地底人説だったかな。地殻変動によって地底王国と鬼ヶ淵村の間に接点ができてしまって、それでなんだっけかな、そうそう、地底王国のお姫様と村の若者が恋をして互いに仲直りをしたっていう SF ロミオとジュリエットだった。んで最新作がどうやらケイちゃんの聞かされた寄生虫説ってわけみたいだね。
But it makes sense though that like Takano got known for telling stories, but like it almost feels like this is more like a smear campaign. Now maybe she did come up with a lot of like random theories, but like she died. Like, come on, Keiichi, you suck. Keiichi, you suck.
いやいや、いつかそれらを全部まとめて本にしてほしいよ。
Mion began laughing so hard she had to hold her stomach. And as I looked at her laughing like that, I realized I fell for something that ridiculous. At that point, it was obvious. I'd been completely taken in.
すまんミオ、俺がこれから聞くことに答えてくれ。まずお社様信仰を復活させようとする連中は実在する？
しないよ。というかむしろ逆。Hinamizawaは外部に対してどんどん開いていって栄えさせていこうということで、御三家はすでに意見を統一してる。
But dude, the white van, that's a real thing.
これはまだ内緒なんだけど、21世紀までをめどにね、 園崎家は現在水面下でその誘致をしててね。うまくいけばここいらは一気に栄えることになる。
Oh my gosh.
バッチャはそれによって山林の地価が一気に高騰して大儲けできると踏んでるみたいだよ。
God, I feel so grounded in like normal reality though.
まあ21世紀の仕事だからそれは私が引き継ぐ大仕事になりそうだけどね。
じゃあ外部の人間を意味嫌う連中なんてのは存在しない？
だからそんなの存在しないって。
That's not true at all. There's people who definitely hate outsiders.
ただでさえ不便な村をさらに不便にしてどうするんだか。現に村は今別荘地として売り出しを開始してる。ケイちゃんの家はまさにその第1号じゃないの。
I mean, that's true.
村人はみんな歓迎してくれたでしょ。若者の流出を食い止めるため御三家もいろいろと考えてるんだから。
There was nothing vague about what Mion had said. Her story made a lot more sense than Takano-san's delusional theories. And so Mion's words woke me up from that delusion.
じゃああれはどうだよ。寄生虫の感染の証拠を示す血液中のなんとかとかいう数値がひなみ沢の住民だけ異常に高いみたいな話が。
そうなの？というかミオさんはそんなのどうやって調べたわけ？
だって高野さんは看護師だろ。調べる。
そんな怪しげな調査のために誰が血液採取なんかに協力するの？
Crap. That's actually a decent point.
誰もしないって。それに仮に採血をしたってどこでどう調べたわけ？ミオさんがたった一人で一体何人の血を調べられたっていうわけ？
Mion was right. I couldn't believe I thought Takano-san could do all that just because she was a nurse. It struck me hard to believe that she got that many blood samples and did a high-level examination like that without any help. When I thought about it rationally, I shouldn't have believed such a ridiculous story so easily.
寄生虫の寄生の証拠として花粉症にかからないって聞いたぞ。
花粉症って都会の病気じゃないの。あれは確か排気ガスと関係があるんでしょ？
I don't know about that.
ここはHinamizawaだよ、ケイちゃん。というか多分沖宮の人にだって花粉症なんてそうそういないと思うけど。
Keiji, stop, please.
園崎本家当主直属の暗殺部隊ってのがいて昔大臣の孫の誘拐とかをやったんだろう。
Why would you say that to her?
そんなのがいたらかっこいいね。
But see, that's the thing. This actually kind of proves, though, that she's going along with it because we know that's happened. Even I was sounding ridiculous. But I believed all of it last night. I believed it because Rena looked very serious.
大臣の孫が高津戸のあたりで突然発見されたのは事実。だけれど、あれは私たちじゃない。私たちじゃないけど、それを私たちはさも自分たちが犯したように振る舞ってた。
Why?
わかりにくいぞ。説明してくれ。
I feel like I'm getting way too deep into this.
ダム戦争の当時、鬼ヶ淵死守同盟は相当に物騒な抵抗運動をしていたのは事実。脅迫めいたこともやってのけた。でもね、あの当時それを利用するやらしい連中もいたらしいの。鬼ヶ淵死守同盟の名を語って金品を要求したりするエセ同盟って連中。
The Onagafuchi Guardians were a very aggressive force at the time. There's a high possibility that someone thought they could use the name to extort money.
その中に大臣の孫の誘拐もあったの。おそらく誘拐犯たちは警察の捜査の撹乱を狙って死守同盟のふりをして身代金を要求したんだと思う。正直あの事件は同盟にとっても驚きだったよ。
Interesting.
よく大臣の孫を誘拐できたもんだって話題になったね。犯人たちに会えたら表彰してやろうなんて盛り上がったっけ？
ちょっと待て。じゃあ大臣の孫の誘拐は鬼ヶ淵死守同盟は何も関係。
全くない。
Then who? Mion said it firmly. It was a simple, clear answer, which left no room for suspicion. And thinking about it, it's nothing surprising. Kidnapping a grandson of the minister and negotiating with him in person is a huge deal. The Onagafuchi Guardians are a very aggressive group, but the operation wasn't so easy they could be carried out with the normal residents of Hinamizawa. It was obviously the work of the professional criminal, without a doubt. And you know, I will say, I remember when we had one of the scenes from the kid's perspective when he was kidnapped. they talk about, like, he's brought up to the mountain and there's an old guy there who, like, sounds like he feels bad for the kid. Maybe that was the mayor, right? Like, who we know is involved in the more religious kind of culty side of things. So maybe it was the culty partition group of the Onagafuchi Guardians who kind of orchestrated that. Interesting.
ただね、さっきも少し言いかけたけど、園崎本家はね、この誘拐事件を自分たちが黒幕であるかのように振る舞っていた。
振る舞ったってのはどういうことだ？
これは園崎本家の秘密の家訓なの。
Interesting.
ケイちゃんにはこっそり話すけど、話したことは内緒だよ。
He's just gonna tell everyone everything, though.
園崎本家ではね、自分たちに都合がいい何かの事件が起こった時、あたかもそれが自分たちの差し金であるように振る舞うブラフの伝統があるの。
Huh.
ブラフってはったり？
うん。自分たちに利することがあったなら、それは事件でなくてもいい。お天気でもいいし、宝くじの当選番号でもいい。あたかも園崎本家が望んだから、そのような結果になったかのように振る舞うの。
If that's true, it's like the longest game of blind man's bluff ever.
そうするとどう？なんだかものすごい黒幕ってイメージになるでしょ？つまりはそういうこと。これは園崎本家の当主だけに代々公伝で伝承される秘密のイメージ戦略なの。自分たちを本来よりもより強大に見せようとするイメージ戦略。
Oh, fetch. That actually also makes a lot of sense. Part of me thinks it could be both, but like, ooh, that feels very accurate to the snippets we've seen from the Sonozakis and like Oryu. And one of the things I always was bothered by is like, how did the Sonozakis have enough power to pull off all these crazy things when they're like a yakuza from a tiny town in the mountains? And it's just a big bluff game.
じゃあほら、ダム戦争時に建設省を占拠するって作戦があったんだろ？あれは。しかもそのために武器やら訓練やら。
それも全く同じだよ、ケイちゃん。そんなバカな作戦本当にやるわけないじゃん。
Technically you could. Like, it really is possible to get like pseudo military training on the side if you really want it.
最大の目的は、あいつらならやりかねない、なんて恐ろしい奴らだっていうプレッシャーと幻想を与えるのが最大の目的だったんだよ。
Oh, crap, this is making a lot of sense too.
つまりこれもまたイメージ戦略ってわけ。
They obtained weapons and went through training just so they could exact pressure. They had no intention of actually carrying out the plan. The Sonozaki family is just bluffing. That made sense. Of course it did. It's impossible to attack the Ministry of Construction. Even if they did, it wouldn't solve the problem. All they had to do is use common sense. Even if they did, they wouldn't have been crushed within seconds by a huge number of policemen. Why didn't I think of that? But the problem is we know as the reader that that's not what happened, that the kid was kidnapped, and that the police response was fairly minor.
じゃあ武器とか訓練とかってのは？
武器に関してはノーコメントでいいよね。訓練もやったよ。はったりになるようちゃんとしっかりね。葛西さんをリーダーにお父さんとこの若い衆たちを引き連れてテキサスの砂漠でトレーナーさんと戦争ごっこをやった後はサンフランシスコでのんびり観光してた。
Like, actually that legitimately makes sense.
じゃあ
I couldn't think of anything else. It was obvious now. No, Rena and I both were completely fooled by the scrapbooks of Takano-san's delusion. Rena was so serious about it, so I believed her, but if you examined it closely, there were so many inconsistencies. I couldn't believe Rena took the delusion so seriously. I knew the reason why, though. She knew she was still in a state of shock after being caught with a corpse that day that was mentally unstable. Well, no, it's not that. It's also like she has the whole like maggot blood thing that does seem to like line up with like the old stories that Takano-san had gathered before they talked. There's still enough there, but she couldn't explain that. Then she came across the tall tale and she believed it. Rena's a smart girl. She wouldn't have taken it seriously if she was stable. Plus another thing happened to wake me up from the delusion. The white van I saw yesterday came to school during lunch break, and the 4 men in work uniforms I saw were there too. I said thank you to Mion and followed them. The man who talked to me yesterday knocked on the door of the teacher's office.
毎度おこのぎ造園でございますね。
どうもご苦労様です。今日も暑いですね。
いいえいいえ。先生は今日もますますべっぴんで。
ではすみません。今日もよろしくお願いいたします。
はい。よろしくお願いします。これ、うちの事務屋から渡すように言われましたんで。
見積書と請求書ですね。ありがとうございます。日付は空欄ですね。はい、お預かりします。
はい。それでは取り掛かりますんで。
The man was talking to Chie Sensei with a big smile.
ん？どうしたのかね、前原君。
あ、校長先生、今の男の人は誰ですか？
The principal pointed his finger out the window. When I looked out, I heard the noise of an engine starting. The noise was coming from the engine of a motorized lawnmower. I saw a young man in work uniforms talking another lawnmower to some brooms and a ladder out of the van.
園芸業者さんである。
Why were they looking for Rena?
だいぶ垣根や樹木が手入れされてなかったからの。夏前に一度剪定を頼もうと思ったのだよ。
ああ、校長先生。この度はお世話になりまして。
The man noticed the principal, took off his hat, and bowed.
うん。よろしく頼み申しますぞ。
なんとか今日中で終わらせますんで、しばらくうるさくしますんが、ご容赦を。
Each worker took one of the tools and walked toward the fence where the grass was growing. The engine of the lawnmower was very loud, and the kids who were playing in the schoolyard looked at it curiously.
こらー、危ないですから皆さん教室へ戻りなさい。
It was Chie Sensei. She handed an envelope with the documents to the principal. It said Okonogu Gardeners in green on the envelope.
では校長先生、申し訳ありませんが、この請求書を後日市役所に行かれるときに持って行ってください。
うん、心得た。
千恵先生、造園屋さんは昨日も来てました？
Oh, wait. They were asking for a girl in white with a red ribbon, weren't they? That might have been the teacher.
ええ、昨日の夕方に一度下見に来てもらいました。帰りに近道をしようとして迷ってしまったと言ってましたっけ。
この村は細い道はだいぶ入り組んでおるからの。無理もないわい。
I remember when I first came here, Chie Sensei started talking about when she got lost and they laughed together. There was never anything suspicious to begin with. I thought they were suspicious yesterday because of what Rena told me. At first I thought it was unusual to see a white van. But then right after I heard the creepy story, I saw a white van parked on the road and I got scared. The gardeners were familiar with the roads of Hinamizawa and they got lost trying to take a shortcut on their way back. That's all. I had totally twisted around. I believed the fake-sounding story. I believed the Sonozaki family was working behind the scenes. I fabricated the existence of a group of fanatical believers in my mind. But there's too much evidence. Now, fetch me. Worse, I doubted Mion. Dang it. I'm such a fool. She's my friend. We took each other's hand that day, saying we were a family made of friends, and our friends were friends no matter what. I said that, but then I doubted my friend. I'm so stupid. But you're doubting Rena too. Anyway, Rena was the problem. She also needed to wake up from this crazy delusion. I had to hurry and wake her up. Rena seemed to be like she had no mind to listen to anyone else. She truly believes the Sonozaki family are the masterminds of a large-scale conspiracy. Oh, this is not going to go well. God, it's so late. I really need to stop. I remember the plate number of the white van. I also remember their faces. Without a doubt, this is one of the vans that had been following me. So far, I've confirmed that 3 or 4 cars have been following me. I could especially recall the white van because it followed me around the longest of all. The people who were in the other cars must be lookouts, and the ones in the van must be tasked with direct contact like kidnapping or assassination. The lookout secured the surroundings, and the ones in the van attacked the target. That's the common maneuver involved in both kidnappings and assassination. The scrapbook said that too. If so, I'd better watch out because it was them, not the lookouts, who came to the school premise. I don't think they'd attack me while I'm in school. They're in the early stage of their covert operation now, hiding the fangs and claws into the last stage of their horrifying scheme. That's why they won't take action in the school where the people are watching. But it looked like they were talking with Chie Sensei in a very friendly way. Could only hear bits and pieces of their conversation, but it sounded very suspicious. I tried to remember the chatter and the movements of their mouths, and I played the memory like a videotape in my mind.
毎度。
どうもご苦労様です。今日も暑いですね。
いいえいいえ。 は今日
So she's only hearing parts of it.
ではすみません。今日もよろしくお願いいたします。
はい、よろしくお願いします。これうちの事務屋から渡すように言われましたんで。
とですね。ありがとうございます。わ、空欄ですね。はい、お預かりします。
はい、それではりますんで。
Oh no. I used the information I had to guess what was going on and played the video again and again in my mind, but also paused and played it in slow motion again to check many times. Then something unbelievably horrifying started to emerge. There's no doubt that they are acquainted with Chie-sensei, but I've never seen them visit the school before, so it's hard to believe that Chie-sensei is their contact. There's no doubt that they're the death squad under the direct control of the Sonozaki family. They had the local accent, which proves they were chosen from the Sonozaki Corps. The death squad is talking to Chie-sensei. They know each other. What's their relationship? Who's Chie-sensei anyway? During the dam conflict, Hinamizawa school was closed and merged with the one in Okonomiya. But the Onagafuchi Guardians didn't accept that, and they made a part of their forestry service building into a school. Needless to say, the school that they made didn't have a teacher, so it was only going to be a token form of resistance. But the teacher who had the strongest passion for education felt sorry for the children, and she came to work there. That was Rumiko Chie-sensei. It was obviously strange. The teachers and government employees, they normally belong to the prefectures. As long as they lie low and don't cause trouble, they don't get fired and they don't get demoted. They can't work up until the official retirement age, and they're guaranteed to get a fixed retirement fund. She was one of those government employees, but she defied the Board of Education and came to work for Hinamizawa. The villagers admired her as a teacher of passion. I heard that Oyu Sonozaki herself successfully negotiated with the Board of Education to suspend Chie-sensei for defying their orders. It was easy to get an answer from them by connecting the dots. Chie-sensei was recruited by Oryu Sonozaki as a teacher to work for the school Onagafuchi Guardians had created. In other words, she was already working with Oryu before she came here. As for the principal, he was the principal of the school in Hinamizawa from the beginning. He's a respected person of the region and has been closely associated with the three families for a long time. So that means the school has been under control of the Sonozaki family all along. That's why Chie-sensei is acquainted with the death squad. It makes more sense now. Chie-sensei confirmed that I came to school today, made a phone call, and called them here. I don't want to know why she called them here. She called them to monitor me. They'll wait until the gate until class was over. But they came to school premise. Why? Stop pretending to be a fool, Rena Ryugu. Do you think that nothing will happen if you pretend not to notice it? Think hard, and calm down, Rena Ryugu. What will they try to do to me today in school? In school? How are they going to do anything with my classmates and friends around me? It's easy. Chie-sensei will tell them to come to the teacher's office during the last class of the day. What about my clubmates? That's easy too. Chie-sensei can easily make them go home early using her authority as a teacher. She can make up any reason she wants. Maybe the classroom is going to have carpentry work done today, so they can't stay in school. Crap. I don't like this because it's laying down a foundation that none of this has been real the whole time. And if that's the case, it's making a case here that literally none of it's in there. Like the Sonozakis are playing a big bluff game. That the mayor's just a mayor. That Rika's just a weird kid. And the murders are like all like independent, unrelated cases like they've always said they were from the beginning. That all the drama we've seen are people trying to find the conspiracies, and that everyone dying in Hinamizawa at the end of the story is just an unfortunate gas leak from the mountains. But there's still like plenty of evidence, like Rika knowing like who's gonna die when, that just doesn't add up there. And then we know that there's the injection needle of some kind, right? Fetch me! It's really trying hard to make it all sound super crazy. See, there's still no doubt. It clearly said they're ready to do it today. And what else?
はい、よろしくお願いします。これうちの事務屋から渡すように言われましたんで。
とですね。ありがとうございます。わ、空欄ですね。はい、お預かりします。
I see. They gave Chie-sensei an envelope with some documents in it. That blank is an eerie phrase. Was my name supposed to be in the blank? Why is it left blank? What does that mean? I told you, Rena Ryugu. Do you still think nothing will happen to you if you pretend not to notice? Stop that. So, what it must mean is that an order from a higher up It says to make Rena Ryugu become blank. I took a peek from the shadows and saw the principal taking documents out from the envelope. He started reading them. He looked stern. He looked very serious. I wished I could take a peek at the documents, but I was too far away. I kept looking at him to see if he'd react at all, and then the envelope caught my eye. The envelope said Okunogi Gardeners, and it had some numbers that looked like a phone number. Fortunately, I have good eyesight. I memorized the number. If they're a death squad, the gardening company must be camouflaged for the occupation. It probably doesn't even exist. I wanted to find out. I looked for a phone. There's only one phone. It's in the teacher's office. Fortunately, the teachers were chatting in the hallway. Looked like looking at the gardeners. It was now or never. I made sure nobody was watching me go to the teacher's office. I rushed in and grabbed the phone at the principal's desk. Went over to the phone number in my head and dialed it up. I'm glad they have a touch tone phone. It would have been difficult if it were a rotary dial. If somebody answered, I'd only have to ask, is this the Okunogi Gardeners? I'd wait for the answer before hanging up. It should be easy. It's connected. Felt a cold chill run through my body at the bottom of my feet. You could have just messed it up, though. Wait, don't make a quick judgment. I might have remembered the number wrong. No, I know I remembered it right. It was an easy number to remember. It's impossible to remember it wrong. Then did I dial it wrong? I put the phone down and started over. This time I dialed the number more slowly. The teachers might be coming back any time. In that situation, it was risky to do anything slowly. But I needed to make absolutely sure. It's the same. There's no doubt. The company Okunogi Gardeners doesn't exist. It's just a camouflage operation for the Sonozaki family's death squad. I was too stunned to put down the receiver. The announcement kept running over and over again. The voice was cold and creepy. I hung up the phone and rushed out of the teacher's office. I ran to the bathroom and held my head in an attempt to cool down. Calm down, Rena. Calm down, Rena Ryugu. Stay cool. Rena Ryugu. It wasn't safe here anymore. If I stayed here, I might get erased even in the open. They erased me? Why? They aren't certain that I have the scrapbooks. I told Keiichi-kun where I hid the scrapbooks. Yesterday I told him that I hid them in my hideout in the garbage dump. Is Keiichi-kun in cahoots with the Sonozaki family? Oh crap, and he talked to Mion! I felt my head was a pot that was cooking some dubious stew. There was only soup in my brain. I said this a while ago. If they become bad guys to her, she's gonna go crazy on them. Oh no. I cut up clues, information, and facts like I cut vegetables and threw them in the pot. Some of them were floating on the surface, and others were at the bottom of the pot. They were being cooked in a boiling soup. No, it can't be. Keiichi-kun's on my side. He's the only one on my side. He held out his hand to me in the trash piles. There's no lie in that hand. When he grabbed my wrist, I felt nothing but strong, pure heart. He promised me he'd be on my side. I shouldn't doubt Keiichi-kun. He's the only one I should trust. He's the only one who's on my side right now. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
ごめん、ケイチ君。危うく君を疑いそうになった。本当にごめんね。本当にごめんね。
I said it out loud on purpose, full of regret that I doubted Keiichi-kun, the only one who's on my side. Now that I think about it, when I have the scrapbook or not might not matter to them. Erase anyone who's suspicious. That's the safest way. Does that mean they're in a hurry? The day of Onogafuchi's Oyashiro-sama's revival might be just around the corner. And that's why they're trying to get rid of any small fish bones that are stuck in the throat by any means before it's too late. We don't need her anymore. Just erase her if you're worried so much. I could easily picture Oyo Sosaki saying that. Picture? No, she did say that. That's why they're here today. What should I do? What should I do? Should I wait until school's over? It was like a fish in a pond. No matter how many times I escaped from the net when I was in the pond and they owned the pond, I didn't stand a chance. Then what should I do now? I couldn't keep escaping from the net. I should get out of the pond. I didn't know how to fight them. I didn't know who's on my side, and I was about to give in to despair. For now, I have to think about how to survive this, so they at least have time to think about how to fight against them. I have to get out of this pond. When I was about to leave the bathroom, one of my classmates came in. I pretended to be sick and talked to the girl while leaning on the wall.
ごめんね。私、ちょっとどうしても具合が悪くて、早退するからって先生に伝えておいてくれないかな。
I shouldn't let Chie-sensei know I'm leaving school early if I'm trying to run away from them. But if I didn't, they might think I ran away without cause. That might lead to them chasing after me without mercy. If that happens, I don't think I stand a chance. They were planning to capture me after school was over, but I happened to feel sick. I left school early. If they took it that way, they wouldn't think I noticed the noose tightening around me. I was about to go back to the classroom, but I got my bag, but I changed my mind and turned around. I didn't need my bag anymore. I realized nobody was watching me, so I stopped pretending to be sick and started running. Fetch me. Okay, I have to stop here. Like, it's just, this is such a big recording. I need sleep. I apologize. It's probably really close to the end. Okay, a little more, just a little more.
千恵先生、ここがおかしいですぞ。
おかしい？どうかなさいましたか？
見積書と請求書の日付が空欄になっておりますぞ。ここは今日の日付ではないのですかな？
ああ、そこはお役所の都合らしいんです。見積書の日付と請求書の日付が同じだと、なんだか都合が悪いそうで、庶務係さんから空欄にするようよく念を押されています。
あとそれから請求書に書いてある電話番号と封筒に書いてある電話番号が違っていますぞ。どちらが正しいのですかな？
あらやだ、本当ですね。社長さん。
はい、どうしましたね。
請求書に書いてある電話番号と封筒の電話番号が違ってますけど。
請求書の方の電話番号が正しいんで大丈夫ですね。
The chimes.
先代の事務所の時の封筒がまだだいぶ余ってたもんなんで、すんませんね。バイトの子に全部新しい番号のハンコを押しとくように言ったんだけどな。すんまへん。消しておいてもらえますかね。
Why the chimes here? It's like it was meant to be. Okay, I'm kind of glad we kept going about the ending. It's a freaking long episode, but it's fine. We'll just read the tips and it'll be done. Oh, I'm so tired. Lunch takeout list 3. Fetch me! Fetch. Okay. Fish in a pond. Make a decision to run. New tip. The danger of a culture-bound syndrome lies in the fact that it can be easily triggered delusional misidentification syndrome. That is to say that in a current case, every time a patient sees something trivial, she tries to interpret it as a curse. It is believed that as a result of accumulation of these events in an understandable form, a delusional system is created, ultimately leading to paranoia. Furthermore, the patient is also exhibiting slight signs of personality disorder. Of course, it's a very mild level. It's not causing any hindrance whatsoever to the patient's daily life. It's common for even healthy individuals to have primary delusions in their daily life, but they usually ignore it automatically without recognition since those delusions are nonsensical. However, there are cases where these delusions accumulate despite being incomprehensible. It largely depends on the particular characteristics of the individual, and it's believed that the patient shows relatively strong characteristics in this area. I believe you're very much aware the primary delusions are categorized in 3 different kinds. Delusional mood is a feeling of impending crisis without base. Delusional intuition is the feeling or sense of duty or goal without basis. And delusional perception is the feeling of baseless causes against a baseless target. In this patient's case, I believe that these incomprehensible delusions are accumulated, acted out simultaneously with a culture-bound syndrome, triggering a delusion misidentification syndrome. And it ultimately causes the incomprehensible delusion to become understandable by interpreting them as a curse. The comprehensible delusional system induces understandably secondary delusions, further strengthening the patient's delusional system with the passage of time. The delusional parasitosis mentioned earlier can be considered a secondary delusion. A common factor in all these cases of paranoia is that even after an outbreak, they still appear perfectly normal with no change in their personalities. The patients are unaware of their own ailments, and due to their personal interpretations of their own delusional system, there are many cases where patients arm themselves logically, making it extremely difficult for a third party to point out that they're having a delusion. Yeah, unfortunately, because you could fill in the gaps of your delusion and make sense of a story, and make a story out of something that's not there. Furthermore, although it may depend on the tenacity of the delusions, there's also cases where a persecutory delusion turns into a pursuit delusion or conspiracy delusion, resulting in the patients creating an imaginary enemy to take up an antisocial behavior. For example, there are cases where believers of a religious cult who are deeply influenced by the cult's founders' paranoid visions, which shift the group into a conspiracy delusion that make them conduct antisocial behavior in the name of self-defense. Yeah, and that's like the drinking Kool-Aid type cults. Although no such cases have been reported in Japan yet, it could very well happen in the near future. Fortunately, the patient hasn't reached a serious condition as of now. With proper treatment, she should be able to make a full recovery. Please make sure that her father also understands this is not an unusual case, but something caused by the accumulation of a number of innocent factors that anyone could have. The patient can be treated only by deepening her bond with her father. As long as she has that bond, she can certainly be treated. For these reasons above, if the patient is to return to her home village, I strongly recommend the patient continues to receive guidance from specialized medical institutions. Please excuse me for writing such a long letter. Thank you for reading this until the very end. Well, fetch. Okay. Oh my gosh, this is so confusing. I feel like I'm going crazy now too, because it's like, it's making a good case and it's all just nothing. That none of it matters. But there's too many things I still grab onto that are like, it has to be something going on. But like, fetch me. Oh, my brain. Okay. I gotta go. This has been a long video. I'm giving you a freaking treat. So you better be grateful, despite the fact that next week we won't be doing Higurashi for a little bit because of the big event that's coming up. But Jay, just give them a chance. But holy crap. But thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for joining me on the channel. I hope you enjoyed that episode, watching me spiral into madness in 2 ways. Oh, I feel sick. Oh, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have. It's been wonderful. And I'm very excited to see where this goes. Although I think I kind of called it early on that Ren is going to start seeing all of her friends as the enemy. And I'm worried she's going to start going like freaking Lord of the Flies on them. So, oh boy. Oh, it's going to get real crazy, isn't it? Like really crazy. I'm kind of like, I almost don't want to see what happens next because I think it's going to go mad. But it is what it is. Let's see what happens. Let's see what we can learn. The Parasite Theory is really intriguing, though. There's like a lot there that I do kind of appreciate. It explains a lot. But maybe it's all just been a red herring from the beginning. Fetch me. I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you had a good time. And I am looking forward to seeing what happens next. So until the next video, watching me out to see me next. See you there.